you're outmanned, and they know they're outmanned, give Boston a little credit. I mean, at what point in time do we give Boston the credit that they're due? This is a professional team. And you got to give these guys, they're out there making millions. They're all playing for respect. But Boston didn't come into this series to lay down. So why are we putting all the blame on LeBron James because he had a pretty bad night? Shooting, I want to say 4 13, 11 points. Every man who plays any professional sports will have a bad day. You hope that that bad day doesn't occur on top of the mountain, or in their case, in the NBA Finals. But remember, this is still the semifinals. They're up 2-1. They should get up 3-1 and get this series over with. No matter what's going to happen next Thursday, the NBA Finals is going to start. And if you're like me, you're saying thank goodness because it's been such a long season. But at what point in the time do we stop taking and pointing the finger at LeBron? And honestly, you have to ask yourself, because I remember Michael Jordan having bad shooting nights. I remember Michael Jordan struggling a little bit during his playoffs, but he always had a John Paxson, a Dennis Rodman, a Scottie Pippen. He had a whole unit around him of pretty good players that made up for some of his bad nights. And remember, the one difference I tell people all the time when you think about Michael Jordan and you think about LeBron James, there's one truly difference in the two. One's truly a giver. If you look at LeBron James, did you see his game? Even on a bad game, he was dishing out assists and almost got double digits in assists. He brings the whole team with him. And sometimes the negative against Michael Jordan, and probably the negative on many superstars when you're a great shooter or you think you're a great shooter, because I think LeBron is averaging an all-time high. He's averaging over 58% from the floor right now. I don't think Jordan ever averaged anywhere higher than 50% from the floor. But when you're a born shooter and you want to get those shots, you're going to keep taking them no matter what. And I know there were nights that I looked at Jordan and he might have shot 25, 30%. I hate to say it, but he might have went 10 for 34. I can remember some of the games when Kobe would go 10 for 30. That's 30% from the field, or 33% from the field. You don't see those kind of productions from LeBron James. You see a guy who brings his team. And one of the good things, like I heard the coach for Boston say, he was passing the ball to the open man. When you're passing the ball to an open man, you gotta allow those guys to shoot. You gotta have confidence in your teammates. So let's kind of get off of the LeBron James hating right now. Guys, I'm a Ohio boy, so I'm going to cheer for Cleveland. Hopefully Cleveland gets themselves back into the finals, and we have another great finals like we had last year. But you gotta give LeBron credit for one thing. He's making the team that he's got a better team, because without him, you know where we're talking about. The last time he left Cleveland, what happened to him? They went into purgatory. The last time when he left Miami, what happened to Miami? We're talking about probably one of the greatest players we've ever seen, and even great players have bad nights. Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. Can this team repeat what they did 2 years ago? I mean, so many people talked about Golden State coming into this weekend as being a better team than their 73-win team. But let's not forget one thing. That 73-win team didn't suffer too many injuries along the way, didn't have the ups and downs that this team has had. But this team truly looks like a better unit than that 73-win team last year, and probably is a better team in all. I mean, you got to think getting 2 MVPs on your team. The day that Kevin Durant signed with the Golden State Warriors, they were for sure a better team than they were that year before. Even though they won 73 games, Kevin Durant made them a better team. But the question I have for a lot of people is, a lot of the players that were ancillary players, guys who kind of added in, guys who kind of joined in and made impacts like Livingston, like David West, I'm not seeing much play out of those guys this year. And for some reason, I tend to think as we get down to the nitty gritty and we get into the NBA championship rounds, the one thing Cleveland's got to do is take the ball out of the stars, take it out of Kevin's hands, take it out of Durant's hands. Even Curry's not shooting as well as he's been in the past. And you got to ask yourself, is he shooting a lesser percentage shot right now, or lesser percentage ratings, because Kevin Durant's there. He's not called upon the way he's been called upon for the past 5 years of his career. So there's just so much I got to ask you, the listeners, you, the viewers. What do you think about this Golden State Warriors team? Do you think Golden State is going to be able to sweep Cleveland the way they've been sweeping everybody else? I'm going to tell you, coming up until the defeat when Boston came back on Cleveland, I was for sure both of these teams were coming in with a 12-0. We were going to see history in the making. Unfortunately for Cleveland, they came, they had a truly meltdown middle lapse. But right now in the game, they're down by 13 points, and Boston has still continued on what they did a couple nights ago. So Cleveland Cavalier fans, you got to ask yourself, how much of a letdown was that 21-point deficit and allowing them to come back and get into the game? And now, have we let that lion out of the cage? That's really what everybody's going to have to wonder from now to the end of the series. What did that 21-point meltdown and allowing them to come back, how much is that going to hurt the Cleveland Cavaliers? Now, just to jump out away from the basketball for a few minutes, I want to run into the baseball, because I've been hearing something that, if you listen to any of my shows over the past year, I talk about this all the time. The length of the season, the time of a game. I want to talk about baseball. So much stuff is going on about unwritten rules, talking about all the retaliations of things of that nature. Here's the part of the game that I don't know about you guys, but I wanted to kind of throw my 2 cents into this viewpoint and talk about the unwritten rules. So much is unwritten in baseball, but it's a part of the game. We have the same unwritten rules in football. Like, I tell people the one thing I never allow is for guys to stick their hands inside my cage. If you stuck your hands inside my cage and my mouth was somewhere close with that mouthpiece, I'm going to try and bite your hand off, because inside of that cage belonged to me, right? Well, that's the same way as second base, talking about breaking up the double play. So much has been changed in baseball, and I know I was listening to Big Papi about a week ago, and he was talking about it as well. So many of these things were those rules that we were born and raised on in the game of baseball. You don't allow a guy to willingly, slide in the second and don't attempt to break up that double play at first. And now they've gotten so bad with it. If you slide out it seems like if you slide out 1 foot or 1 inch outside of the second base, they're ready to throw you out of the game. They're just changing so much in baseball. My question goes to you, that batter's box. So much is being talked about with CTE and football, concussions in baseball and basketball. Now we see they're starting to put a little bit more protection. This is probably the only rule I think I like that Major League Baseball seems to be approaching and talking about, and that's throwing at the batters. Here's one of those things that I never understood, and probably that's one of the reasons I'm not a baseball player. These guys throw 100 miles an hour. And to me, that ball is almost like a higher weapon. We joke about guys playing with a football and you go in and collide, and, it's like two cars going 40, 50 miles an hour and slamming into each other in football. Well, that baseball being used as a weapon or as a way of retaliating has always bothered me since the day I stood up at the plate and got hit in the head. And I can tell you, in Little League, being hit in the head was one thing. But in the pro level, you got to think it's an entirely different thing, and it's got to hurt worse than anything you have in baseball. Baseball, for the most part, is a non-contact sport outside of a ball snapping on that bat. And then all of a sudden now we got a pitcher who can throw 100 miles an hour using the baseball as a tool of retaliation. And that's kind of the unwritten rule that I don't really care for. This is one of those kind of things where, I always tell people, you get upset when a guy carries a bat out to the mound, but you don't say nothing when a guy pitches and hits a guy in the head with a ball. Or he willingly slams it right into his back, where he can probably chip a vertebrae, he can break a bone, break a rib, whatever. And so I'm always curious what people think when they see the bench brawl or they see the pitcher who you know is going to retaliate immediately. Well, that's my problem with the game of baseball. Certain things are so unwritten, I think we've got to define them a little bit better in the game as it stands now, because I'm telling you, I sit there and I watch this and I've never understood it. You know, none of the pitchers ever stand up for themselves. The team runs around them. Only one guy I can tell you that I actually watched stand up for himself, and that was Nolan Ryan when he got the guy in the headlock and started punching on him. But, you know, when you're a pitcher and you're standing up there on a mound, I got to think you have enough respect for the next man and the man standing in front of you. You don't retaliate because he hits a home run. You don't retaliate because you don't like the way he went around the bases. See, those are those unwritten rules that I just never understood and never really cared for. I mean, if a guy slams a walk-off home run and you got to play him the next night, why are you pitching at his head or pitching at him, period? If you were smart, you'd probably be walking him. But, you know, here we are talking about something that continues to go, is a continual part of baseball. And I think these unwritten rules, we've slowly got to make this game not only safer for, you know, the fans and the players, but for that guy standing in the batter's box. Because honestly, excuse me, he's a wanted man when he's standing there with no opportunity to do anything. I love it how the first thing they do when he starts walking towards the mound is they grab his bat. But I'm sitting there saying to myself, wait a minute, the pitcher just hit him in the head or hit him in the, you know, in the back or wherever. He used a weapon on me, not to say I want to take this bat, but I always loved that that's the first thing they grab. And I can remember the day Mike Piazza, when he had that half bat and he slung it out at the pitcher because the pitcher was trying to go at him. And everybody, they ridicule Mike Piazza for that. But I'm still to the point that, wait a minute, nobody ever ridicules a pitcher. And I understand. I'm not going to say I don't understand teammates backing their teammates. But when you see a guy who you know has done nothing really wrong, he hit a walk-off on you the night before, or he flipped his bat. Guys, I mean, that's part of the game that really a lot of people are coming out to see. They're looking for the long ball, and every time a long ball goes out on a pitcher, the next pitcher decides he wants to retaliate. That's not baseball to me. And so, you know, like I said, I want to hear what you got to say about it. Let me know, are these unwritten rules the things you want to see changed in the game? Because those are definitely things I want to see changed in the world of baseball. And then while they're at it, why don't they talk about the length of the season, the length of the games, you know, the number of overtime innings. I mean, you know, that's a big, you know, they had the owners' meetings this week in Chicago for the NFL, and they're trying to shorten the game of the NFL. Really? I mean, I hate to say it, 5 minutes from overtime doesn't make the game of NFL football safer. And what they're doing, I have no clue. I don't even know who brought that up as a vote. But they're going to trim 5 minutes off a 15-minute overtime. First of all, why can't the pros create a system like college? Let's have a game, you know, that way there are no ties. You know, if we're so upset with ties, why don't we make it harder or make it one of those sudden deaths? You get the ball on the 20, you either put it in the end zone or the other team puts it in the end zone, and forget about field goals. Just let's get it into the end zone and let's make sudden death. There's no reason to constantly keep putting 15 minutes, and then after the 15 minutes, if nobody scored, guess what we have? A tie. So either have a tie at the end of the game and let the game be safer for those players, or let's come up with a sudden death and get the football game over with quickly like they do in college. And now we can go on to the next week, and players aren't trying to figure out if an extra 5 minutes really makes the game safer. Just like baseball. You know, if you're going to really make the game safer, let's make the game safer. Got to talk to the Ram fans here. Of course, this is the Legend Community Show. I'm your host, Greg Bell, and we come at you every week talking a lot of football, of course, a lot of Southern California football. Ram fans, I want to know what you're saying to yourselves right about now. OTAs are right in the middle of you know, they're in the thick of things right now for pretty much all the NFL teams. I heard Sean McVay talk about our number one draft pick of last year because, of course, we didn't have a number one this year. Are you concerned with what you heard from Sean McVay? And I only say that because he's talking like this is a kid that we're bringing up slowly. This is our number one draft pick that we gave up 2 first-rounders this year and next year, as well as second-round picks. And he's talking about him slowly getting used to the system. He's garnishing the system. And I'm like, wait a minute. You've been in the helms, 5 months now? You should have had so much class time with this guy. There should have been no offseason. If I'm Jared Goff, I would have been the first person to knock on your door and say, let's get started. So Jared Goff is our number one guy. Let's face it, we don't have a number 2 here or a 3. We're going to the war, to bat, to games, to the Coliseum with Jared Goff. And I'm curious what is going through the head of Sean McVay. Would this have been Sean McVay's first-round pick? That's a major question and a concern that I have right now, just from listening to him, not because there's no excitement in Sean McVay's voice when he talks about his number one draft pick. And then to talk about him making plays, getting the reads, learning the system. Guys, I'm going to say this because I played in 3 different systems. No, I'm not a quarterback, but Randall Cunningham played in 2 or 3 systems. He always performed. Warren Moon played for 2 or 3 teams. He always performed. Joe Montana went from San Francisco to Kansas City in 1 year, took Kansas City to the playoff. He always performed. And when you're a number 1 draft pick, I've got to think you're capable of performing immediately and having all the tools necessary to learn the terminology, because that's really a lot of it, what a lot of it is. It's not necessarily learning an entirely new scheme, because let's be honest, they all run the spread option. They all run none of their quarterbacks are underneath the center. And I don't know how much Sean McVay's got Jared Goff under the center, considering he wasn't a typical quarterback that got up underneath the center. He wasn't a drop back kind of guy. He came out of Kyle's system, taking a shot from, a long snap from the center. So you got this kid, what his tools are. He's got a great arm, supposedly. He's got a great mind, supposedly. And so why does he have a hesitation in his voice to say, hey, he's doing a great job? I haven't heard that out of Sean McVay's voice. So as a former player, I'm sitting there and I'm listening and I'm watching body languages, and I'm just being honest. I didn't see anything that told me, he's excited to be coaching Jared Goff right now. And I only say this for 2 reasons. The first reason is both of their jobs are on the line. And not necessarily Sean McVay's, this is a do or die year for him, but his reputation is put on the line that he has all the tools necessary to coach these kids up. He coached Cousins up so well at Washington, now he's going to be a high-paid quarterback. Okay, whoopee-doo, that's Washington. I don't want to talk about that because Kirk Cousins was a completely different style quarterback. And the system that he had in Washington fit Kirk Cousins pretty damn well. So Kirk Cousins was I'm telling you, he was a physical specimen. I saw him in college. He was a good college quarterback. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't watch a lot of Cal games. I heard about Jared Goff, but he wasn't someone that was lighting up the charts. It wasn't like he was doing something astronomical. He took a poor Cal team and made them number 2 in the country. He was just another quarterback that played at Cal. Nothing against Jared Goff, but when Aaron Rodgers was at Cal, the 2 years he was there, he lit it up. He was throwing astronomical numbers. He was putting up the kind of numbers you want to see from your future first-round draft pick. And thank God Cleveland decided to make Aaron Rodgers their guy. And let's face it, let's look where he's become, what he's become. But Sean McVay, his first meeting after OTAs, it was humbling. It was like, he's getting everything. He's doing everything. That just left me a little concerned. After 4 months, I wanted to hear Jared Goff had everything down. Learning a system, if that is the only thing in your job category for 4 months, is to learn the playbook. I don't know why that can't be done. I've done it numerous times, from the Bills playbook to the Rams playbook to the Bills playbook. And most of you guys don't even probably remember. I went to Green Bay and I actually learned their playbook, which was, they all were similar playbooks. You just have to get your mind to put different terminology to them. So I'm just curious. And that second reason, like I told you, like I was bringing up to you, was Sean McVay. This is kind of a major step for this guy. And for him to stumble here could be a major deficit or a major dent in his armor. And let's face it, we've got this guy to what, a 5-year contract? And the worst thing I want to see the Los Angeles Rams turn into is the Cleveland Browns or the Chicago Bears, who Cleveland over the last, I want to say, they say 14 years has used 26 different quarterbacks and 24 in Chicago over that same period of time. Guys, we have to have, that's the one position of all positions in the National Football League that you got to have stability. You got to have a stable guy there who is your go-to guy. I mean, let's face it. Tom Brady's been sitting in New England for 14 years, 15th year coming. Tony Romo had been in Dallas for over 10 years. I don't even want to talk about Drew Brees because, you know, outside of getting a quality guy like Phillip Rivers, he would have sat in San Diego for 15 or 16 years. Because I'm telling you, when San Diego let Drew Brees go, it was basically a let go for health, not because he wasn't stable, not because he wasn't performing at a high level. It was because he had questions with his health, nothing to do with his capability on the field. So that's the one thing I was really curious when I heard Sean McVay this past week, and he started talking about Jared Goff. I didn't hear that spark of confidence. I didn't hear that you know, this is my guy. This is he has all the tools that's necessary to lead this team. He's kind of like he's coming along. You know, it's kind of like a soft shoe. You know, if you're not catching the game right now, Cleveland is down 55-47. Of course, I got it on the corner of my eye. I'm still a Cleveland fan. I'm going to cheer for a homer. You know, I'm a homer. I'm an Ohio boy, so I got to cheer for Cleveland. You're listening to the Legends Community Show. I'm your host, Greg Bell. Been talking a lot about LeBron. Been talking about the NFL. I want to stay with the NFL right now because I don't know about you, but if you're a Southern California fan right about now, oh no, we lost it. If you haven't heard, the NFL has voted to push the Super Bowl out of Los Angeles and into Tampa in 2020. You know, I know a lot of people. I know my administrative assistant, Barbara Nelson, she's going to be crying because she was really hoping to go to a Super Bowl. And I told her, my 2 tickets are going to be in your hands for the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. What do you say, Los Angeles fans, right about now? You know, that game is a perennial game, something that the city of Los Angeles really has been just dying to have for probably the last 10 years. Since the last championship with the Los Angeles Lakers, to be honest. I mean, it's been so long since we've had a parade in the heart of Los Angeles. That game was going to be a coming out party for a lot of people, especially for the city of Inglewood, as well as for the Rams and the Chargers, really more than anybody for the Rams. Did really a $2.9 billion construction project, did that project actually get delayed because of 2 months of rain? $2.9 billion? I can remember when the Houston Dome was getting, you know, the new stadium was being constructed. Houston had rain. Did Stan Kroenke, is this construction crew, are they really giving us a 2-month delay means a 1-year loss for the Los Angeles Rams? I mean, we got to wait till not 2019 now, 2021. Really, for 2 months of rain. And I'm just trying to think to myself, you know, yeah, we're in California and we can't predict the rain, but I would have thought they would have had some leeway in there because honestly, at 2.9 billion, I figured they were going to finish a few months early. You're right, an inept crew. I'm telling you, I hear you, Aaron. They are inept. That's what I'm trying to say. Why would you have a 2-month delay turn into a year loss for a city who we know how important it is to build this stadium? Now, they voted on Las Vegas. Las Vegas will get their stadium started probably in the next 2 weeks. They haven't even started on the property in Las Vegas. But that stadium will be up a year before Los Angeles is projected to be complete. And I'm just saying to myself, why? I mean, for a stadium that started out at $1.8 billion, now it's at $2.9 billion. They've got all these overage charge. When does Kroenke get some of his money back? Because they're in that estimation or guesstimation, whatever you want to call it, it's cost the city billions of dollars. And when I say they've cost the city, a Super Bowl in Los Angeles, this isn't like a Super Bowl and nothing against Miami, nothing against Tampa, nothing against Houston. A Super Bowl in a city like Los Angeles that has been dire need for football for the past 20 years could have been a showcase of showcases. This city was so hungry and waiting to see football. It's almost a shame that we've just lost the one thing we need more than anything is a entertainment spectacle. And that's what the Super Bowl would have been for us. It would have been a great avenue to market everything that's good about football back where, think about it. The Memorial Coliseum one day used to be the heartbread of the Super Bowls. How many Super Bowls have been played at Pasadena or in the Coliseum? Just think about that, and to have it snatched from under you for 2 months of rain. And then what's going to happen in about 6 months when we have no rain and they're going to say, well, the ground of this or the ground was too hard? I don't know, because we know the dry months are going to come. That's a given in Los Angeles. And to see the Super Bowl snatched out from under our feet so close. I mean, everybody in Los Angeles was getting excited. I mean, everything that you could think about excitement was coming. And unfortunately, here's the delay. But like I said, I'm telling you, there won't be a delay when they get, a few weeks worth of rain in Las Vegas. The contingency, I'm sure now, will be put in place, and that projection will be given a tighter window so that next team won't have to give up, having a Super Bowl. And man, that's my next question. If they were going to vote on anything, do you think they were in there talking about what do we do about the Super Bowl in Las Vegas? Because they don't want what happened to the NBA the last time the NBA took an all-star game there. It was a nightmare. It was crazy. Guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show. I'm your host, Greg Bell. If you don't know who I am, played 10 years with the Rams, the Raiders, the Buffalo Bills. This is the home of football talk, sports talk, just talking all about everything that is sports in America. Now, back to basketball, because I want to get on something that Chuck said, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, it was Charles Barkley. I mean, he made a comment this past week about the stars that are playing on one team and how if he knew if you didn't have a ring, that took away from your valuation, it took away from your Hall of Fame status. And it was hilarious because he talked about the fact that, what was his comment? I got to read this comment because it was such a fun comment. I even wrote it down because I wanted to say it verbatim. Charles said, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. You let these guys go out and start creating their own superpower teams. Now the NBA's at loss, and he thinks it's going to hurt the NBA game overall. What are your feelings about that? Does Kevin Durant going to Golden State, does that guarantee him an NBA championship? Because LeBron's got a little bit different things to say when that game comes about, hopefully in the next, 5-6 days? They've got to get by this one here tonight. And right now, Boston has them 57-47, if you haven't got the tube on, I'm sorry, but I just got to watch some of this game while we're talking, and it's amazing. I'm figuring everybody's tuned in to see what Cleveland's going to do tonight. But what do you think about the super teams? Right now, you got two superpowers, one on the East Coast, one on the West. Do you think that super team is going to take away from the NBA? Because think about it. I mean, it wasn't a negative thing, but Kevin Durant he said it the best. If you don't like what you see, then turn off your television. Not the words that the owners want to hear, but as a player, if I know I'm going out there and I'm giving you my heart and soul, and you don't like it because we're good or because we're better than everybody else, don't point the finger at me. You got to point the finger at the management. I mean, it's not my fault that y'all set the rules and said, look, if you don't want to stay where you're at, go somewhere else. Or if I want more money, I want to do this or do that. Kevin Durant kind of spoke it from his heart. He's going out every day. He's giving 110%, playing hurt, playing sore. And then we as fans are criticizing him for joining the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to tell you this, no reservation. I would have loved to have played in the NFL Super Bowl one time in my career. I spent 10 years in the National Football League, played in 3 conference championship games, once with the Rams, twice with the Raiders, and we couldn't get over the hump, the Buffalo hump, the San Francisco hump. So I never had that opportunity of playing in the Super Bowl. But I can tell you right now, that's something that's sorely missed out of my soul. So Kevin Durant wanted an opportunity to get a chance to play for a ring. He left, went to Golden State. It was pretty guaranteed at that point he'd be the best in the West. But he still has a hump to get over. That hump is called LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last year, the Cavaliers shocked everybody, did something that no one thought was possible. They are as good a team as they were last year, and there's no doubt that Golden State is as good as a team as they were last year. My only question goes out to everyone, like I've said all year long, what took us so long to get to this point? Yes, we knew it was going to come. But if you don't like seeing the best play against each other, why complain? It's like Kevin Durant said, there are other things you can, that's the one thing about basketball season that you have. There are multiple games being played on every given night for 82 games. Like I told you earlier in the year, guys, we play so many times that they play so many NBA games, you got plenty of things to watch. Let's see what I got here. Katie Time. I'm looking at a couple of things coming across Facebook. Amazing. If you are a Golden State fan, just like you said, nobody is upset right now. If you're living in the Bay Area, no one is upset at seeing their team dominate. When the Lakers had Showtime, yeah, there were maybe 3 or 4 other quality teams, but I'll be honest. You put Kareem on a team and you got Magic and you got James Worthy, Jamal Wilkes. That team's no different than what we're looking at in Golden State. But they still had to go out and earn their rings. And it's not a given. So I'm loving what I'm seeing from Boston tonight and what I saw from them 2 nights ago. It's like the fact that Boston said, we're going to make a series of this. We're not just going to lay down and hand it over to LeBron. He's got to earn it. That's what the NBA game is. That's why they're pros. And it's kind of like that movie that was once written, which has the greatest soundbite that I can say is Any Given Sunday. And in the NBA, any given night, a professional team can beat another one. They are pros. They're the highest level of basketball players in the country. And you got to at least give Golden State a little hand. But at the same time, I'm going to give a big hand to the Boston Celtics. They didn't lay over for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They played them tough. And now they're 10 points ahead of them at halftime. It's going to be a fight for Cleveland the rest of this night. It's just going to have to be a fight for them. What are we saying here? Exactly. And they're doing this without their number 1 scorer, without their leader. Isaiah Thomas, let's face it, the guy, he's not Isaiah Thomas from the Detroit Pistons. He's even smaller. Here's a 5'9", I think they say, 5'10" guy who's playing well above the rim. You got to get, he got them to where they are today. The only sad thing that I'm hearing about Isaiah Thomas, and I'm sure, Aaron, you're going to have a comment for me. Isaiah might have played his way to a new team, unfortunately. They're seeing that because of his size, he doesn't always give them the defensive fortitude, the defensive specialists that they need. And now they're seeing that they can win without him. And they're playing a completely different type of basketball right now. Smart's a more he's more of a leader on the team. He's not a receiver. He's not just standing and watching like he has in many games during the season. Bradley, oh my goodness. Bradley seems to have taken the whole I'm gonna play for me and Isaiah role. He's playing well above his level. Bradley is an all-star. And now he's actually getting the opportunity to play the role that he came to Boston to play, a game changer. And his 3-point with, 2 seconds left on the clock showed that he has the fortitude and he has the confidence to take the shot. Many times they were making that a pass to Isaiah Thomas, and Isaiah was taking the shot. And now I hate to say it like this because here I am thinking of a homer move. Isaiah to Los Angeles, I'll be honest. I'm not happy with all the young players that we got. I think we need some leaders. And we've already talked about Paul George coming to the Lakers. But what about Isaiah Thomas? We need a spark. Magic needs something that he can hang his hat on. He needs excitement. And we've got some players that are worth giving up to ship them across to the Eastern Conference. Don't have to deal with them anymore. And let them do the tutelage. Let them do the tutoring. We need some veterans because that's what the Lakers Showtime team had. They didn't develop Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Jamal Wilkes. Those guys came after trades. So we've got some young guys that are worth keeping. But at the same time, we got some draft picks. We got some positions that, man, I'm just excited right now wondering what the Lakers are going to do with some of their positions and really what they're going to do to improve this team and put Showtime back in Los Angeles. Yes, you're listening to the Legends Community Show here every Tuesday, and the replays are during the course of the week. But man, so much to talk about. We've, of course, talked about the Penguins. They've got Fleury on the bench right now. Murray is back in as the starting goalie. I got a question. Before I don't want to just drop basketball, but I got a question for the hockey fans out there. I'm not the biggest hockey buff, but I do know Mike Sullivan, who's the manager of the Penguins right now. How big of a risk did he take putting Murray back in there? Last year Murray helped win a ring. Fleury goes down with an injury, put Murray back in, and Mike Murray, of course, the goalie, he's playing great defense right now for the Penguins. Penguins are fighting for that last spot. They want to find themselves traveling to Nashville. And if you didn't see the Nashville Predators win over the Ducks this week, you missed a show, guys. I saw my boy Eddie George there. What's the singer? I can't think of her name. Her and her husband plays for the Nashville Predators. Is that Carrie? I think it's Carrie Underwood. Yeah, Carrie Underwood was there. The Predators were going berserk. It was crazy watching them. It's because they've never won anything in Tennessee of this magnitude. And they put themselves right on the cuffs of Lord Stanley's Cup. And I have to say this, I'm not a big hockey aficionado, I should say, but there's one thing I will say about hockey. I love their cup. It takes 2 men to carry the Lord Stanley Cup out. They can't just walk one guy. I love it when they put it over, one guy always drops it. So it takes 2 men to carry the championship trophy. And you gotta say, oh my goodness, Nashville will never be the same. The state of Tennessee will never be the same if the Predators win Lord Stanley's Cup this year. And they've got the greatest opportunity to. They coming in with the strongest season. The problem is you still got Crosby, you got Murray, you got Fleury, you got the Penguin mainstay that are still there. And let's face it, the Penguins have the history of no other hockey club in the United States. Nothing like Edmonton, probably. Nothing like, Saskatchewan and all these other Canadian cities. But in the United States, the Pittsburgh Penguins have been the most dominant team next to Boston. And by now, I didn't even compare the two, but they might have as many cups as Boston at this point in time. But of course, I'm probably wrong. Somebody tell me whether I'm wrong or right. But can you see the Nashville Predators winning Lord Stanley's Cup? That state will erupt. I don't know if you saw any of the game this week. When they beat the Ducks, I don't think I've ever seen a happier celebration just to be a conference championship. I mean, they won the conference, and you would have thought they just landed a man on Mars. They just went kabong crazy in Nashville, and it was just great to see. That's the part of the game that you love most, And yeah, they are. Well, Aaron, you might be kind of going overboard a little bit, Aaron. I don't know if we're gonna call them the Yankees of hockey, but maybe you're saying Pittsburgh is the Yankees of hockey. But in terms of Nashville, man, my hat goes out to these guys. I hope they do something great. Not that I'm cheering for them, because everybody's going to be on the bandwagon. But it's nice when a new city comes up. They've been in the game a little over a decade now. And it's great to see Nashville put themselves in a position to win the biggest crown there is on the ice. And, of course, that is Lord Stanley Cup. Talking a lot of daycare. I want to know what you say. And I say this because I wrote down on my notes here, are we talking about too much daddy care? Of course, I'm talking about LeVar and Lonzo Ball. I want to know what you guys think about Lonzo Ball. And I want to talk about this for one reason and one reason alone. When you start thinking about the African-American family, the one thing that's probably the worst thing that we talk about it is that the dad is never around. Now, all of a sudden, you've got LeVar Ball. And he has spent a lot of time working with his sons. And this is daddy daycare to the best of the best. And why are so many people so negative on LeVar Ball right now? I know he's kind of taking a lot of light away from his son, but is that a bad thing? Because every time I've run into LeVar or seen his sons, they're in the Inland Empire, so, I met him years ago, but every time I've seen him, he's talking about his boys. He's proud about his boys. And the one thing that I can say that is not a negative is he's there every single day for his boys. But the general public, I don't know if you really understand how important that is for these young men. And the fact that he's got sons at this level, and not just one, not just two, but he's got 3 boys that have already committed full ride scholarships to UCLA. And I'm listening to everybody. And yeah, you can talk about the shoe. You can talk about what he's doing with all the press and challenging Michael Jordan, challenging Charles Barkley. All that's just hype stuff. That's just talk. But in the long run of and in the bigger and grander scheme of it, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at LeVar Ball saying to myself, this guy is with his boys every day. He's kept the family together, which I applaud him. That's something that, I can't even tell you what the national averages are, not just for African-American families, but for families in the United States, period. Sometimes we split, and that's just a given. And I see, he a man of faith, he's a salesman. He's doing a great job of something that, you can't buy this type of press that he's generated. And I know people say it was a stupid move, distant Nike, distant Reebok, Under Armour. He disposed all 3 of the major shoes. But did he really put them on blast? Because all he did was basically said, I want to market my son. And by creating a product, he's already done something that a lot of players, and I say this, especially football players, His son has made more in 3 weeks of selling his shoe than most guys make in a career wearing a pair of cleats. And I know he's making more than most basketball players make in their career just off his first 3 weeks of selling his shoe. They're not throwing multi-million-dollar shoe contracts out to everybody. They only pick one or two guys here or there. And most of them aren't going to have a Kevin Durant deal. They're not going to have a LeBron James deal. Most guys are going to get $40,000 worth of shoes and support and supplies over the course of a year or a career. These guys aren't getting shoes like they're flinging them off the racket, off the rack. They're just throwing them from the ceilings. That's not the way the shoe industry works. They do things so they can make money, not so that the player can make money, so that they can make money. So why are we so negative on LeVar Ball? Because he wants to promote his sons. He's promoted them to a level that I'm going to tell you, getting 3 scholarships to UCLA, great deal. I can't help but tell you, that's a hell of a deal. Cleveland, I'm out in the corner of the eye, just so y'all know, Cleveland's making their comeback now, down by 7. This game is going to turn a leaf, guys, and I want to know, are you going to roll with them? But back to LeVar. Are you on this guy's support team? Or are you one of the naysayers? It's one of those things where so many people have been ripping into him. I'm almost to the point that I want to applaud the guy because he's a dad who's in his son's lives every single day. And he's going to keep a lot of the negative people away from him. See, I didn't want to kind of throw this out slightly, but did anybody happen to read the story about Trent Richardson, the running back out of Alabama? Now, I'm not going to tell you he's the biggest bust. I'm going to tell you guys, if you get an opportunity to play one game in the National Football League, you've made your dream come true. And maybe he wasn't the best running back that the Cleveland Browns should have selected, or, whatever was going on in Trent Richardson's life. There's one thing that I know probably is not going to happen to LeVar Ball, or Lonzo Ball, I should say. His friends aren't going to steal $1.6 million from his bank account and use it to go to the clubs, bottle clubs, and Hulu subscriptions and Netflix subscriptions. I don't know if any of you guys happened to catch this article, but when I read it, I was shocked that this kid who made a ton of money, his signing bonus was more than I made in probably my NFL career and 10 years into my job career. He gets a guaranteed $6 or $7 million, and 1.6 of it is blown by his family and friends while he was trying to play football. Now, my question had to go in, well, what the hell was Trent thinking? Who gave them access to your checking account first and foremost? So it meant you did it. Who did you trust to have around you? And why were you supporting so many leeches? I hate to call them that, but I understand the mother and the father. You don't call them leeches, but the friends and the boys and the partners. If they were friends, why would they be taking money out of your account? That's a major question I have for him. And when I think of LeVar Ball, he's going to keep a lot of that away from Lonzo. Lonzo's probably going to get a $10 million guarantee contract from potentially the Lakers. And I'll talk about that a little later. But is this daddy care that LeVar is giving Lonzo and his boys, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? From my point of view, I got to tell you, I can't be upset right now because, the fact of the matter is he's with his boys and he's with them every day. And for them to see a father figure of that magnitude, it's going to rub off. They're going to be better men in the long run. They might not be better basketball players, but they will make better decisions. They're probably going to make sure to keep the leeches away from them. Because I'm going to tell you, when I read that story about Trent Richardson, I was shocked. And I was, I had to tell you, I was disappointed that no one told this guy. And I tell people all the time, it's it's a continual cycle that we have where, you just don't learn from others' mistakes. And that's something I hope that the kids that we work with through Athletes for Life learn from the mistakes that I've made, and from some of the pros that you get an opportunity to meet with, learn from the mistakes, because you don't have to continue the cycle of making bad decisions. You can be corrected, and you can correct it from learning from other people's bad decisions. You're listening to the Legends Community Show here on the Power of Voices. Guys, it's been fun talking with a lot of people. Want to talk one last time about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They seem to be back on their horse. They're coming back doing the things that I think all of us expect. But how much blame should we be putting on Kyrie Irving, Love, and some of the other players? Everything so far is the fact that LeBron James didn't score his 28 points, his 9 assists, his 8 rebounds, or whatever. They're down by 5. They're down by 3. Uh-oh. The game is starting to come back towards Cleveland. I'm getting excited here watching on the side. But how much blame do you put on LeBron James? And really, is it a fair finger point? Because that's all we're really doing here. Because I told people when you're at that level and you're a professional in whatever the sport is that you might be a professional in, you have the capabilities of beating anybody. On any given game or any given night, the Boston Celtics will beat the Golden State Warriors. And I know that's a reach. I mean, let's be honest. I'm reaching here. But they're pros. These guys are the best and the finest basketball players on earth. And why is it that one man's bad night takes away from the glory of the Boston Celtics? The one thing I only heard from a handful of reporters, everything has been about LeBron not playing well, LeBron having a bad game. I've been waiting for one person to say, look, let's give Marcus Smart some credit here. He had one hell of a night. I mean, typically you leave Marcus Smart open, he's not going to drain the 3 at the rate that he did. He dropped 5 or 6 threes on the Cleveland Cavaliers in that win. And not only did he drop a multiple number of threes, he also had a great defensive night, and he penetrated well. And Avery Bradley stepped up for Isaiah Thomas. Why aren't we giving the clap or the support or giving the acclaim to the team that actually played darn well? You're down 21 points and you come from behind. It ain't got nothing to do with the fact that LeBron James is having a bad night and Kyrie Irving started missing his threes and Love started missing their threes. It had to do with the fact that the Boston Celtics came out and played a better second half, and then playing a better second half, they beat the reigning champs. That's what I was hoping to hear more people talk about, but unfortunately, I'm not hearing a lot of people like that. And you're right, it's a team sport. We got to put the onus on the team. The Cavaliers probably got too big-headed. And that's really what happens when you're a top-tier team. And, I think the one thing I do know that was said is that it could be a wake-up call for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Remember, last year, same thing happened. They had a wake-up call, and it helped them as they went into that series against Golden State. And in that game 5, I should say, LeBron woke up, and the beast came out, and he pulled everybody with him. So at this point in the equation, I'm done making comparisons to Michael Jordan. So many people want to do that with LeBron James. They want to talk about the fact that Jordan never had playoff games like this. Guys, a playoff game is no different than a regular season game. There are nights when Mike had off nights. We didn't see it on the brightest of stages, but there are some playoff games where he didn't take the last shot. He didn't make the best passes. And remember, I know there were times when Michael shot 35, 40%. He wasn't shooting 58% like LeBron has done throughout this playoff. And so, okay, one night he goes 4 for 13, only puts in 11 points, but he distributed the ball to the open man, as the Boston coach said, and those were the right plays to make. So a night off, no, I don't call it a night off, Aaron. I actually call it, a good night for the Boston Celtics. It's just a good night for the Boston Celtics, guys, and nothing more than that. Now, Steve Kerr killer. Is that what you said? Yeah, it was a night off. He can be a Steve Kerr killer. I don't think it's going to be a Steve Kerr, but it is going to be interesting, guys. Before I get out of here, I got to mention one last thing. Cleveland's down by 5 if you're watching. Mike Brown, man, how sweet is it going to be for Mike Brown to fly out to Cleveland and walk into that arena as the head coach, interim head coach for Golden State Warriors? I know he's going to get some boos, but it's got to be a great feeling for a guy who, honestly, guys, I think both times he got fired from Cleveland, he had no control over it. It wasn't his decision. It wasn't his own, his own doing, I should say. He inherited an opportunity where LeBron left, and there's nothing he can do about that. Even Pat Riley, the guy in Miami right now, they could have fired him after LeBron left, and nobody's firing Pat Riley for letting LeBron leave. But Mike Brown is going to be coming into Cleveland if Cleveland can get back in the gear and win this series. Mike Brown will come in as the interim head coach for Golden State. How sweet will that be for Mike, man? Good luck to Mike. I hope everything goes well for him. Hey, guys, it's about time for me to cut out of here. End of the night. You've been listening to the Legends Community Show. Stop in with me every week, man. Stop in, join the show. I got you here, Aaron. Thanks for giving me all the comments. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Chris, I saw my guy from Notre Dame. Thanks for popping in the comments. Enjoy it. Next week, tune in with me. Legends Community Show. I'm your host, Greg Bell, signing out. You guys take care. I'll talk to you soon.